Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Josh McCafferty this morning to start the week. We're here to chat through various Celtic subjects today. Could be a fairly big week in terms of transfers. I know we've been saying that for a wee while, but it looks like the T's will be crossed and the I's will be dotted on a few deals potentially this week, Josh, that will give everyone a bit of a morale boost ahead of pre-season.
Yeah, definitely. The first pre-season friendly, I believe, is a week on Friday, so it's
I
it's
know, I know.
it's not that long away until Celtic are back in action. But yeah, hoping for a couple of deals to maybe get over the line this week. I feel like they've been in the works for a good while now. Perhaps Callum Osman, Benjamin Negrin as well. So let's just see what the week brings, and hopefully by the end of it, there's a few in the door.
Yeah, those are the main two I think people are waiting on. We're not going to talk too much about that today, folks, because I think we did a lot of talking about that clutch of players last week. So we'll be talking a little bit different today. Good morning to everyone joining us in the chat. It's good to see regular faces, regular names joining us. First, a quick note from our sponsor, Seneca Medical Group, #1 hair transplantation clinic in the UK, who have clinics in Glasgow, Aberdeen and Edinburgh, and they are our sponsor for throughout the coming season. So our thanks to them as always. As Josh says there, with pre-season just around the corner now, I think Celtic return to training next week, I think, is it? Josh, I think that's the chat, isn't it? It's within the next 7 days anyway. Celtic will be back at Lennoxtown, and with that friendly against Queen's Park on the next Friday night, I think it's a good opportunity to maybe talk a bit about some of the Celtic youth players that might be given an opportunity, especially in these early matches. Brendan Rodgers likes to blood through a fair amount of these players. He did this last season and the summer before. I would say there's maybe 4 or 5 that people are thinking about most when they think about this type of thing. I think people will look at Shawn Mardell, they'll look at maybe perhaps Francis Turley, they'll look at Jude Bonner perhaps as 3 of the main contenders to really stake a claim to kind of push into the fringes of the first team. Is there any other names or who are you looking forward most to seeing in terms of those youth players this summer?
I think the most excited I'd be to see is certainly Shawn Mardell. I think everyone on the same boat after his cameo at Pittodrie last season. I think a lot of people were a bit gutted he didn't get an opportunity on Flag Day as well. He wasn't even in the squad. So game against Queen's Park and the other pre-season friendlies that are coming after that is a very good opportunity for him to come into the team and stake his claim for a place. You obviously mentioned Jude Bonner, who I think Brendan Rodgers, when he talks about youth players, he always talks about their physical stature and are they developed enough in that aspect to play the men's game. And I think Jude Bonner certainly is. He's tall. He's got that type of profile. Turley's another one you mentioned. He made his first team debut towards the start of last season away at St Mirren. Not really seen him much since. A couple more players that I like is Colby Donovan, right back. He was in a couple of match day squads last season. Obviously played a couple of pre-season friendlies as well. Now another one's Hayden Borland. A lot of people might not have heard of him because he's only 17. He's born in 2008, so he only turned 17 in March, and he only really kind of found his place in the B team towards the end of last season. He played 12 times, once in the UEFA Youth League, 11 times in the Lowland League. Now he's a defender. He's quite tall. He's left-footed, a central defender. I first watched him when Celtic played Salzburg in the UEFA Youth League in a knockout tie. Now they eventually lost the game on penalties, but that was Borland's European debut for the B team, and I was very impressed by him that day. He played in the Glasgow Cup final for the B team towards the end of last season. They lost that one on penalties too. But yeah, I think he's one that I'd be excited to see. I don't know if he's going to obviously even go with the first team just because he's found his place in the B team, but he's still a player I'm excited about. So him, along with the likes of Shawn Mardell. Obviously, we mentioned Daniel Cummings a lot last season, but it's probably just a matter of time before he finds a new club ahead of the new campaign. But yeah, that's the kind of names I'm excited about. Kyle Ure's another one that obviously gets mentioned a lot. Captain the B team on a couple of occasions, midfield player who's got a decent profile as well. So yeah, that's just a couple of names I would throw out there. You've got guys like Lenny Agbear coming back from loan too, who featured a couple of times in pre-season last year as well.
Yeah, Lenny Agbear's, I think he's a Scotland Youth International as well. He plays in central defence as well. So there's a fair amount of options I think Brendan Rodgers will have. A lot of names thrown out there. Is it fair to say, so you mentioned Shawn Mardell at the top, and obviously we saw glimpses of him. He became the latest kind of referendum on the youth setup, Josh, because I think a lot of times when a player appears for the first team has a bright 10 minutes or so, suddenly everything becomes about them, and the entire viewpoint of what's coming through the academy then starts. It gets put on their shoulders, which I think is slightly unfair at times. So, and that pressure is something that they need to deal with. But I think in pre-season that pressure kind of comes off for me, and so it's just about giving them minutes without the risk of 3 points, without the peril of a cup tie, for example. And it's really an opportunity just to see them play in their natural form, which is why I think a lot of people will be looking forward to seeing Shawn Mardell in this summer.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you play for Celtic, everyone knows the pressure. If you draw, it's a disaster. If you lose, it's a disaster as well. But when you're playing pre-season friendlies, the result doesn't really matter, and there's no pressure whatsoever on the players' shoulders. And for young players, that's only beneficial because they can play their game without having that thing in the back of their head that, oh, if we draw here, that I'm going to get a lot of flack, I'm going to get a lot of criticism. That doesn't really matter in pre-season, so they can play it without pressure. And yes, it's great. And Celtic have got some decent friendlies lined up against some decent teams as well, as much as they're playing Queen's Park, Cork, no disrespect to those sides. They've got games against the likes of Newcastle United. They play Ajax in the Como Cup. They've got, I believe it's Sporting out in Portugal they're playing as well. So some decent European sides, Champions League quality sides, you could argue, who Celtic are going to be playing. And for those young players to get the opportunity against them is good. And you never know, because we've seen it with a couple of players in years gone by, that you have a good pre-season and it eventually leads into you perhaps getting a chance in the first game of the campaign, Flag Day, or upcoming league games after that. So it's a really good opportunity for the young players. That's what I'd say, and I think the manager will be of the same mindset.
It's difficult as well, though. I remember last summer, a lot of people were talking about Matthew Anderson. I think he impressed it on the youth tour particularly, and it looked set that he might, make a push into the fringes of the first team. Sent out on loan to Admira Vacar with Ben Summers, and it looks like he might be given some sort of opportunity this summer, but I think his contract's up perhaps with the option, but it remains to be seen whether Celtic are going to take up that option. So things move quickly as well. You can be one of the bright starlets coming out of pre-season, but a year on, you're no further forward in your Celtic career. I'm expecting to see much of Ben Summers coming back from Admira Vacar as well. People will be looking to see and check in on his progress. I think he does have another year at least, so I think he will be given another opportunity to impress in pre-season as well. I think people have liked the look of Ben Summers over the years. He's getting, to the top end of that kind of youth tier now. He was a younger player before, but he's had a couple of more seasons. He's had loan spells at Dunfermline, obviously in Austria, and it might be a summer for him to stake a claim as well.
Yeah, definitely. 21 years of age now, so at that age you're kind of getting to that, I don't want to say last chance saloon stage, but certainly in terms of the youth players and the academy players, it's a bit older than, for example, someone like Shawn Mardell, who's 17, 18. But the good thing that comes with that age is the experience. I'm sure the manager will want guys who've got a decent amount of experience in the men's game, and Ben Summers has that. Dunfermline, Admira Vacar playing the second tier of Austria, which not a great level, but still good for him to go out there and they challenge for the title. They eventually didn't win, but he did well, and alongside Matthew Anderson, that club Celtic have a partnership in Admira, and he's already made his first team debut. Summers, obviously, against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park a couple of years ago under Postecoglou. So, yeah, that's one. It's a name perhaps people have slightly forgotten about, just because he's been out on so many loan spells and he's not been at the club in and around matchday squad. So it might be one that takes some people by surprise. You just have to wait and see. I've not actually seen him in action for a good couple of years now, so he might have progressed well. We don't really know until he plays. And at 21 years of age, physically developed more than he was when he made his debut. Mentally, more mature, more wise, more streetwise in the game as well. So yeah, it could be a chance for him. There's so many names and things that we're mentioning, but what you forget as well for this Queen's Park friendly, a lot of the guys who are on international duty probably won't be back with the squad yet. Paulo Bernardo just get knocked out of the under-21 Euros at the weekend, so I assume he'll be getting a wee extended break there. Other guys who are away with their countries, and that presents the opportunity for the young players to come in.
I'd expect that the team against Queen's Park and Cork will be quite heavily influenced by youth players.
Yeah.
Just my gut feeling on kind of past summers, especially that Queen's Park game. Someone asking about Hazel Finn's asking about Mitchell Frame, Josh. What's the latest on him? Because he was a name, one of these names that does the round among supporters a year or so back. But what's his status at the moment? Do you know?
Yeah, well, he was with obviously the B team last season. And I've just got the stats up here. 29 games, 2 goals, 1 assist. So he was a regular for them. He's still got another year left on his deal. And obviously, kind of came into the team under Brendan Rodgers. Not a season there, but season before that, made his debut in the Champions League against Feyenoord, and by all accounts did pretty well. But he's not really been seen since then. With that left back spot, Kieran Tierney obviously will be coming in to Celtic and playing a lot of pre-season friendlies as the manager looks to build up his fitness. But other than that, there is no other senior left back at the club. Greg Taylor, obviously, he's not even signed with the club yet, but we don't expect him to be a Celtic player next season. So there's a spot up for grabs there. Celtic haven't really been concretely linked with any other left backs to be back up to Tierney. So there's an opportunity there for someone like Mitchell Frame to go in, play in pre-season, maybe you impress, and then who knows if Kieran Tierney, God forbid, I'm sure we all hope it doesn't happen, gets injured before that Flag Day game. There's a chance there, if the manager doesn't fancy playing Liam Scales at left back, for someone like Mitchell Frame to come in. Now he's in terms of age, he was very young when he made his first team debut, and he's still only 19. He doesn't turn 20 until the new year. But in the last year of his deal, it's one where it's a kind of make or break year for him. Is he gonna go out on loan? Is he gonna get that first team chance, or just stay with the B team and kind of waste away there? Obviously, this new cooperation agreement rule that's coming in, I think it'll be a good chance for a lot of the young players to go away and get their minutes at teams and perhaps Championship, League One, League Two, and that. Mitchell, I don't know. It's a lot of people question it because he had that first team debut and he's really been since. But the proof will be in the pudding in pre-season if he gets his chance to maybe back up to Kieran Tierney. And there's no one better he could learn from as a young left back coming through at Celtic than Kieran Tierney, in terms of what he did and what he's done. So he's got a good role model there.
There's a bit of that at Celtic, isn't there, where a young player makes that initial cameo, or Brendan Rodgers gives them those initial cameos or gives them appearances on the bench, but that next step to then becoming a regular rotation option or a regular substitute just seems to be missing, and it's been missing for several years now. And I'm not sure what the answer is to that. I'm not sure if this new cooperation agreement will make that easier because players don't have to wait until the next transfer window to come back on loan. Theoretically, they could impress in the Scottish Championship for a few weeks, really get a run of game or a run of form on the go, and then can come in as a substitute on a Celtic match the following match, for example. I think that's how that cooperation agreement will work for 3 of those players. So do you see that as Celtic selecting maybe their best 3 prospects in that regard and doing that? Or how is that cooperation going to work? Is it going to be for some of the younger players to get more senior minutes? It's difficult to know how Celtic will approach that.
Yeah, and you can partner with multiple clubs, is what I'm led to believe as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. Obviously, this is only the first year that it's going to be implemented. So I think for a lot of the teams, the bigger teams in the Premiership, the likes of Celtic, it'll be just about learning how to get the best out of this system, and whether that is sending your best guys out and then they get the minutes, they build up form, like you say, or whether it's for the younger players who are maybe not even the B team, maybe in the under 19s as it's going to be next season, for them to go out and get those senior minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. Celtic, we said a couple of weeks ago, they're in talks with Queen's Park over it, which isn't surprising given the amount of young players from Celtic that have gone out on loan to Queen's Park in the past couple of years. But yeah, I wonder how it's going to pan out. And we don't really know how effective it's going to be until this time next year. That's the issue. We can all sit down and say on paper, oh yeah, this looks very good. But the one thing it is change. And we all know something needs to change with regards to youth development, not just at Celtic, but in Scottish football as a whole. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
What do you make of this cut-in comment from Henrik Larsson? And this is a sentiment that a lot of Celtic supporters feel. The academy setup as it stands doesn't seem fit for purpose unless the purpose is to train young players up for export to other clubs. Is that a harsh assessment, or is that just a reflection of reality of how it's been over the last few years? Because again, that that jump from those initial cameos into being a genuine youth prospect around the senior setup has been lacking for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a hard dilemma. I mean, in terms of exporting players to other clubs, Celtic cannot control when someone like Ben Doak, who I think would have become a regular in the team. I think that's controversial to say. Celtic can't control when Liverpool come in and make him a life changing offer as a teenager to go down and play in the Premier League. You can't control that. Another one's Aidan Borland, who is captain of Aston Villa's youth team in the UEFA Youth League and helped them win the Youth FA Cup this season. He was at Celtic and they made him a big offer and he goes down there. He's another one who was plucked away from the academy before he even had the chance to play in the B team, I think. So it's hard for Celtic when you have all these bigger clubs, guys like Liam Morrison as well, who went over to Bayern Munich, who could have easily got a chance at Celtic as well. So he was away with the pre-season with the first team at 16 years of age in France, if I'm not mistaken. So it's hard in that sense, but you look at it on paper. The last player to come through really and establish himself as a first team player was Kieran Tierney, you would say. And
Yeah.
that was 6 years since he's left, and now he's back at the club and he's 28 years of age, and he was the last player. So if you look at it in that sense, the number of players that produced that have gone on to be first team regulars, it's not fit for purpose. But within that, you probably could have had, I think, 1, 2, maybe even 3 players who could have came in. Ben Oaks one, Aidan Mullins perhaps another, who could have maybe established themselves in that period. It's so difficult as well. I mean, we know the young player is so hard to come in and stake your place, especially at a club like Celtic. We know the pressure that surrounds it, everything about it, and especially when the league's tight, when you're in a title race. I would say Kieran Tierney established himself in the Celtic first team when there wasn't a real title challenge. It was that last season before Rangers came back into the top flight. Whereas now, obviously it wasn't close last season, but when you're going into this season, it could be closer. You've got a lot of big Champions League games, big cup ties that could define your season, and it's tough for the manager as well to really trust these guys and play them. But I would say, my personal opinion, on the whole, it's not been good enough that the amount of players that have been and not played.
There's been an element, or just from the outside looking in, of Celtic feeling like they're hard done by in this scenario and kind of almost being a bit too passive in terms of some of these players leaving. Now, I'm not suggesting Celtic throw money at these players, and actually, I've been led to believe over the years that it's less about money for the young players and more about the kind of support system that's put in place for in these big academy places and these big European academies. It's just a different world. It's a bit of a graft, I think, at Celtic for some of these young players. Obviously not in the context of wider society, but in the context of football, for these young players coming through, it's a little bit tougher, I think, at Celtic. There's less of a support system in place. There's the facilities aren't as nice. You're training with less talented peer group overall, of course, and those are all factors when a young player's thinking about their career in the long term. And I'm not really sure how Celtic address that. I always get the sense of not Celtic taking the huff when these players are having their head turned almost, but just an element of, are we doing all we can to offer these players the support system that they need to then make this step into the first team? Celtic will argue that they do. I think it's evident that not enough has been done in that regard, and I'm not sure it's all about the wages of the player and all about money. I think it's about more than that. Another good question from William O'Toole here. If some youths are going to feature within squad rotations, what is a realistic way of measuring their success? If they are inconsistent in performance, how much patience do we have? I guess when you're that kind of rotation substitute option, it's really, I would take just establishing themselves as someone who can perform for 15 to 20 minutes most weeks. I think that would be a good measure of success in itself, just because it's been so rare at Celtic over the last few years. We talk about Kieran Tierney, the closest who came to it beyond Tierney, I think, was Mikey Johnston. And even if you had 2 or 3, not of Mikey Johnston's level, but getting that level of game time, I think that would start to be seen as, changing the way Celtic are operating with their academy.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard for the young players as well because of the standard the supporters want, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you come in, you have 2 bad performances in a row, and all of a sudden everyone's saying, "Oh, I shouldn't see this guy again." It's hard in that respect. But yeah, Mikey Johnston was a player we know came in for a lot of criticism from the supporters. At times unjust, at times very much due criticism that he should have got. But yes, it's a tough question when you're looking at measuring the success of young players, because if you're looking at it in one aspect, the standard is the bare minimum because of the number Celtic have produced over the past couple of years. So it's so hard.
I think involvement is good enough measure of success at the moment, isn't it? Just
Yeah,
because there's such a lack of involvement.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, the standard is the bare minimum, and the bare minimum is to play and get minutes. So if the club could get even one player who's in a lot of matchday squads next season, who's regularly travelling with the team, who's making cameo appearances here and there, 15, 20 minutes, then that could be judged as progress, and that could be judged as success. Paul Tisdale, obviously head of football operations, he's dealing with a lot of transfer stuff, as we know, but he'll also be dealing with the academy side of things. So I wonder if anything's going to alter now that he's in the door and been in his job for a couple of months.
Darren O'Dea made an exit, of course, this summer. I was expecting. I think he performed the role of almost like what would be dubbed a loan manager at other clubs, and kind of managing the loans of some of these younger players, finding clubs best suited for them, keeping track of their progress, etc. Are we expecting Celtic to replace his role at the club? Because it seemed to have kind of been created for him. I'm not sure if Celtic are going to be bringing in someone else to perform that role, or whether it just falls under the remit of someone else.
Yeah, I can't see them bringing in someone else. The only thing I can see perhaps happening in that regard is them promoting from within and giving someone else the job. Maybe someone like Stephen Hamill, who's at the club. I'm not sure, but yeah, it wasn't a role before Darren O'Dea got it, so I'm not sure if it's going to be a role after. It's a really good move for him, actually, going down to Swansea and being assistant down there, a big club in the English Championship. But his official title was Player Pathway Manager, Pathway Loan Manager. It's one of those. But yeah, I can't see anyone taking up that role now, unless it's an appointment from within.
And I think O'Dea was a big fan of the Admira Vaca setup, so we'll need to see how that now develops with O'Dea not at the club anymore as well. I think this new cooperation agreement, the Celtic's new link-ups, will be an interesting aspect to all these kind of the youth side of things that we're talking about. Just a little bit of transfer news over the weekend, Josh. Celtic scouting in Japan again in the J-League. Striker Shin Yamada. Apparently Celtic have been looking at him over the last few months alongside various other foreign clubs. Plays for Kawasaki Frontale, I think. Scored 19 goals in the J-League last year. Not quite as prolific in the J-League this season, but again shows that Celtic are still keeping their hand in terms of scouting the J-League after the success of Maeda, Hatate, Kyogo, etc.
Yeah, looks like a decent striker. He's not that kind of younger age profile. He's 25 years of age, so he's someone who's developed, got a lot of experience. Part of that Kawasaki Frontale team who got to the final of the Asian Champions League last year. They knocked out Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr in the semi-final. Yamada didn't feature in that tie, but looking at some of his clips this morning, the videos can paint a false picture of players, but what they do give you is a sense of their playing style. Looks like a decent penalty box striker, good in the air despite not being the tallest player in the world. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this develops this summer with Celtic. They've kind of not really dipped their toe in the J-League market since Ange Postecoglou was at the club. And in terms of signings from that league, you had 6: Hatate, Maeda, Kyogo, Edeguchi, Kobayashi and Tomoki Iwata, and you had a 50% hit ratio, I would say. 3 out of 6 very much going on to become regulars. So it's a risky one if you make the moves for Yamada and Inamura, the defender who's been linked. So we'll just have to see how it develops. But yeah, Celtic still keeping their eye on it. It doesn't surprise me, to be honest, given the success of the guys at the club. I think it kind of points a bit towards Paul Tisdale. It kind of has him written over it a wee bit in terms of he likes to be very shrewd and get these players from his time down south. So that doesn't surprise me entirely that Celtic are looking over there again.
I think people will be encouraged that Celtic are just keeping their hand in the market in some sense, even if they don't bite on any of these players that they've been linked with or are scouting. I think there was a worry for a time that Celtic had just stopped scouting Japan, but I think it's evident that Celtic will keep an eye on some of the best talents. I think, and we've discussed this before on the channel, but the big thing that how Celtic really utilised Japan was just Ange Postecoglou's knowledge of the league and knowledge of the players who were stars in that league. And perhaps we don't quite have that knowledge at the club now, but we still need to make sure that we're not letting any of these big talents, because I think culturally they're a great fit for Celtic, the Japanese players, and I think that the success that some of these players have had at Celtic, for example, Maeda, Hatate, Kyogo, both in Scotland and representing in the Champions League, is I think is a great advert for Celtic as a destination for these Japanese players as well. Once you set that precedent, it becomes then easier to attract some of the best talents from a country going forward. So I certainly hope that Celtic will continue to find some of these best Japanese talents.
Yeah, 100%, because they already know there's a pathway there. Maybe not a pathway to bigger clubs after Celtic, because none of them have really got big moves yet, but they know they can come over, they know they can win titles and adorn themselves to the supporters, as we've seen Hatate, Maeda and Kyogo do, all of whom are fans' favourites. Certainly Daisen Maeda, in the past kind of 6 to 12 months, has established himself as a real hero at Celtic. So yeah, there's a proven pathway for the players to come over, and they won't be alone in terms of what Kyogo was when he first came over. He was the only Japanese player, but there's a network, there's a support group there for the Japanese players coming across, and there's a proven pathway of success for them.
Tampi TV, just to close off our chat today. Tampi TV, any update on Nigel? Now, not as far as we're aware over the weekend. I think it's just pending. There was some Fabrizio Romano chat on Sunday that contracts have been signed and whatnot, and we're just waiting for the official confirmation. This is going to go through, so I don't think anyone needs to worry about it. It's just the waiting of when the club want to announce it, I think, is the latest on Nigel. Unless you've heard anything different, Josh, but that seems to be the case, isn't it?
No, I've not heard anything else other than that. But yeah, Romano saying yesterday about £1.2 million fee, and then a contract in 2029 with the option of another year. So a 4-year deal with the option of another 12 months. So looks like a very shrewd signing. You can only judge the player until he's in the door. Versatile. Let's just see what happens. I think it's only imminent when he's going to get announced.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was today at some point, but that's not based on knowledge. That's just the direction of travel. Big Dom, Osman is far more developed than any of our youth players. Go poach the English leagues for more and play them. Callum Osman's 19. He's played regularly at Premier League 2, which I think has proven to be a fairly good kind of breeding ground for some of this young talent. I think Callum Osman is one of the ones that people will be excited to see in pre-season and coming in, because I don't think he's automatic to be a starter in the coming season. I think he'll be on the kind of the fringes of the first team squad, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get minutes against Queen's Park or Cork, etc., in some of these early friendlies once his signing is confirmed as well.
Yeah, I think he will get minutes. Sad Mida was away on international duty with Ireland, so he might not be back until a bit later. Maeda will be in pre-season from the first day because he wasn't away with Japan. But yeah, Osmond, good opportunity for him to come in, scores a couple of goals in pre-season. You never know. Celtic, I'm sure everyone knows, signed a young striker from Fulham a couple of years ago, and Moussa Dembele, and he turned out to be a roaring success. So let's see what Osmond can do. I think it's a really good level, the Premier League too. It's something I've spoke about previously in terms of Scottish football, that there's no recognised league in terms of for B teams in like under 20, under 21, under 23 level even.
I think it's under 18s, isn't it? I think that's the closest we've got, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's moving to under 19s next season.
Right.
And the number of games teams are playing has been cut drastically because of the new loan agreement. But yeah, it's something that the league and the country as a whole could do with is a recognised kind of older youth system like that.
Yeah, I think Premier League 2 has been decent. There's been some good players coming out there and then making the immediate jump from Premier League 2 into the Premier League. So I think for Callum Osman to have been successful at that level, or certainly holding his own at that level, bodes well for him being able to bridge the gap to be part of the wider Celtic squad. And I guess that's probably Brendan Rodgers' point on this, and he does say this a lot, that he doesn't just play youth players for the sake of it. They have to have something to contribute. And I think maybe the signing of Callum Osman shows that he would like some of that kind of youth fire in the wider squad, but they have to be of a level that he feels comfortable giving them minutes in a senior Celtic match.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's got a good track record of scoring at a decent level, and if he comes in, he sets the example. Obviously, he's only 19 years of age. Then it's something where Rodgers can say, "This is what I want from my youth players." To the guys in the academy, can you step up and be at this level? And you will get the opportunity. But let's just see what happens with Callum Osman. No one's really expecting him to come in and be the first choice striker for Celtic, but
No.
He'll be there and thereabouts. And as we know, he'll be going in straight with the first team when he signs. He's not for the B team, so that shows that the manager has a decent level of faith in him without really seeing him playing a Celtic jersey yet. So and that's what I'm excited about as well, actually.
Brian Warrior asking another harsh question here. If our youth players aren't good enough to contribute, why are they at Celtic? I think the answer to that is that it's either that or you just give up on it completely. And I don't know if Celtic are in the position where they want to just give up on their youth system completely. I think they're... I mean, some will argue that that would be the brittle decision to take and find a more progressive or different way of working in the modern football environment. But I think Celtic will be hanging on to their academy for a good while yet. So it's just a case of keep trying to bring through players of the quality, try and retain their talents. It's never easy. But yeah, it's a difficult one because as long as they aren't coming through and making a sustained impact, people will be asking harsh questions such as that. And so it's on Celtic to deliver ultimately.
Yeah, and the only way it can change is by young players coming in and playing. Whether that's going to happen next season, the season after, it could be a long time before another youngster establishes themselves in the first team, but it will happen eventually. And until then, it's very frustrating. But I think hell will freeze over before Celtic scrap their academy.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. Hey, thanks for joining me today, Josh. Thanks for joining me, everyone, live in the chat or in the comments below. If you've got any thoughts on Celtic's youth system, or you can drop us who you want to see most of all in these upcoming friendlies. Would be welcome to see your comments. We'll be back later in the week tomorrow, discussing more about Celtic, hopefully with a signing or two in the bag. But if not, we'll keep persevering. As everyone's well aware, pre-season's just around the corner now. Celtic return to training next week. The first friendly against Queen's Park is less than 2 weeks now. It's next Friday night, so there's lots to look forward to, and we'll be here all over the latest news and developments on the Celtic way. Thanks, Josh. Goodbye, everyone.